I'm not frugal. I'm also not lavish either. At the end of the day, I think it's all about balance. And these are my 6 tips that I've learned over my time managing my money, saving money. As somebody who comfortably earns 6 figures in either Australian dollars or US dollars, I'm not frugal, but I'm also not lavish either. As someone who's watched a lot of finance videos, I think a lot of the tips out there are quite prescriptive. For example, just stop spending money on things you don't need. While it's true that cutting back on unnecessary expenses is a great way to save money, but as you and I know, we often spend money on unnecessary things. And when we have rules like this, it leaves us feeling demotivated, bad about ourselves for not following the rules, and there's no recognition that when it comes to finances, things are actually quite nuanced, which is what I want to cover today in this video. In this video, I'm going to cover the 6 unconventional advice I have when it comes to your finance. And as a quick disclaimer, I am somebody who earns over 6 figures, and so I understand that this is coming from a privileged perspective. However, these are the guidelines that I have for myself, which have helped me manage my money. My first unconventional advice on how I manage my money is spend on what you value. When you look at your finances through a prescriptive approach, every single dollar is equal. Whereas when you look at it through a values-based approach, not every single dollar you spend on different things will be equal. For example, one of my top values is connection. That means connection with friends, connection with family. This means that I really enjoy spending time with my family and friends, and it is one of my top priorities to actually spend more time with them. Now, if we take that example from earlier, the prescriptive approach where it says you shouldn't spend money on unnecessary things, one of those unnecessary things could potentially be eating out. However, when I approach my finances from a values-based approach, I really value spending time with my friends, and that might mean eating out with my friends. That might mean going out to do activities with them, whether that be painting or going bouldering or going to yoga or going to some sort of event. So for me, when I look at the money I've spent when I've gone out to eat, I don't see it as I've spent money on something unnecessary. I see it as actually quite important because that's how I build my social connections. That's how I align my life to my value of connection. And it means that money I've spent is very well worth it because money can't buy you friendships. Money can't buy you love. Well, I suppose some people can buy friendships and buy love, but you know what I mean. So what I'd encourage you to do is write down a list of what you value in your life. If you need some ideas, here are some of my values. Connection, which is where I spend time with my family and friends. Learning. For me, I love feeling inspired. I love always learning. And so that means that I will spend money on books. I will spend money on courses. I will spend money on coaching. And even though with a lot of this, I can access it for free, for example, through YouTube, which I do, I also take my learning quite seriously. So I'm willing to invest the money that's needed to actually get me to my destination faster, which often means paying for something just so that I can have that shortcut or that clear guidance so I'm not kind of bumbling around on YouTube trying to figure things out. By the way, I just wanted to add a quick plug for my own coaching services. I've been personally helping over 50 tutors up to this date with their own tutoring businesses, whether you're somebody who is aspiring and just starting out to somebody who's on the other side making over 6 figures already. You've got a team of tutors and you're really looking for systems in order to help you scale to that next stage of your business. I've helped these tutors add thousands to their pocket, sometimes tens of thousands, which has meant that they've been able to leave their full-time job to go into tutoring full-time, start living the life that they want with the flexibility, the independence, the reward of being a tutor, the reward of being a business owner. So if you're somebody who's interested in my coaching services, then have a look at the links in the description below to find out what would be right for you. And if you've got any questions at all, feel free to DM me on Instagram. Okay, back to it. Another example of me spending money in the learning bucket is just me doing yoga. I'm also doing 2 types of dancing this week. I'm doing bachata and I'm also doing some sort of groovy twerking dance class. I'm curious about singing. I plan to do a debating class. And even though I'm spending money here, all of this, the return on investment here is a lot greater than the amount that I'm actually spending because all of these activities really enriching my life and make me feel happy. easy. Another value I have is flexibility. I became my own boss because I used to be a pharmacist and I used to do the 9 to 5, but I realized that I absolutely hated it, and that's because I felt like there was no flexibility in my life. I was stuck to a rigid routine, but also the final straw was when I wanted to go on vacation, I had to ask my boss for it and I got rejected. And even though I completely understand why she rejected my request, because that was the most busy time of the year for pharmacists, it just left me feeling like I had no control over my own time, which is why I now value flexibility so much. So what this means for me on a day-to-day basis is that I will spend money on things that help me to free up my time. I will spend money in my business on purchasing automation software, on delegating my work to others, just so that I can have ownership of that time again. It also means that I try to book in a trip overseas every single year. It's not just so much about the trip itself, which is really exciting, but it's just the fact that I can book at any time at one and go for as long as I would like. So now that you've got my 3 values, I'd really love to know in the comment section below for you to comment what are the values you have, and if you wanted to share with us how you actually spend your money in alignment with those values. I think that would be super helpful for others to read and for us to learn from each other. Now, the next unconventional tip I have on how you can manage your money is the opposite of the first tip, and that is think about what you don't value. Like I mentioned, not every single dollar is created equal. And here's an example of this. While I highly value spending money on a meal with my friends, I do not value going out and spending money on coffee. So even though both of these actually fall under the bucket of eating out, the value I place on either example is different. I will very much value and not be as strict with how much money I spend when I'm eating out with friends. When I used to go out and have coffee, I would either have it solo or I would have it with my partner Josh. Now, coffees these days cost around $7 Australian, with the fact that I'm not really forming further connections, and the caveat here is spending time with my partner, which I'll talk about in a second. And when I compare that with making coffee at home, the routine that offers me, the smell of my chai in the morning, being able to sit down, have a sip of my chai while I'm journaling or about to meditate, that brings me a lot more value than actually going out and getting the coffee. Now, I mentioned just before that the caveat here is actually spending time with Josh. For me, when I spend time with Josh, I don't necessarily just have to go out to coffee with him to spend time with him. I can still spend time with him while we're at home making the coffee together. So in this way, making coffee at home provides me more value, not just financially, but also on a personal level as well. So I would encourage you to think about what are the things that you don't value. It really helps you to cut out the crap when you're making decisions on what you should actually spend your money on. My third unconventional tip for how you can manage your money is to be resourceful. Just because you see things priced a certain number doesn't mean you have to pay that much for it. For example, try asking for discounts. This could be literally for anything. It could be as simple as buying a pair of pants, which I did recently and I got $5 off, or it could be for something bigger like your home loan, where you call up the bank and you just ask them, hey, can you do a better deal for me? This is the phrase I love to use now. Can you do any better? It's honestly such a simple ask, and if you're somebody who feels uncomfortable with that, it's something that gets more and more comfortable over time, especially as you start getting rewarded for the ask. Another example of this is just asking for help. When Josh and I purchased this house, which is our first home together, I actually ended up saving us over $100,000, and that's because I tried to leverage the people I knew and the connections I had. Because we were going to auction on this house, I had never done an auction before, and so I was very nervous. But because I've purchased properties before through a buyer's agent, I decided to give him a call just to ask for a few tips on how to actually negotiate best. It's because of that one conversation where I called up and I tried to be resourceful in getting as much information I could that he then offered to actually be on the phone with me during the auction and help me negotiate on the spot. And it's because of him that I know we ended up paying $100,000 less than we would have, because if it had been left up to me, I would have spent that extra $100K just to secure the house because I loved it that much. So when it comes to being resourceful, I encourage you to just ask. If you don't ask, then that opportunity won't won't be there for you to save that bit of money. My next unconventional advice on how to manage your finances is for you not to get FOMO. FOMO is the worst when it comes to finances, because if we look at, say, investing, people who FOMO will be jumping around to the things that are trendiest at that point in time. If it's shares, they'll be going on about shares. If it's Bitcoin, and then next minute it'll be NFTs, and then who knows what else they'll be bouncing to. When you get FOMO, it means that you're not sure in yourself, you're not sure in your own investing tactics and strategies, which means that you are at the helm of basically what's happening around the world, what's popular, what's trendy, and sometimes it just leaves you not necessarily investing your money wisely. So for myself, I like to simplify my financial life. I don't want to be on all of these different platforms. I don't want to be investing in property and shares and Bitcoin and NFTs and whatever else there is out there, because honestly, that is just too much of a headache for me. It's not aligned with the life that I want to lead. For myself, I know my lane, and that is property. I love property. I'm interested in it. I want to learn about it. By understanding this, it actually stops me from getting FOMO when other things are happening and Bitcoin is going through the roof. Now, the reason why FOMO helps in the long-term game is because what that means for me as a savvy investor is that I don't actually get overwhelmed by the news. If property prices are going down, I'm not going to act irrationally and just start selling my properties because it's going down and I'm jumping onto Bitcoin, which is doing well, for example. Because I'm actually spending time educating myself on the property cycles, I understand that prices go up and down. I'm actually going to use that to my advantage. So when prices go down, rather than getting scared, I'm actually going to get excited because I know that not as many people are in the market, and because house prices are low, it actually means that I can go in and buy more property at a lower price and therefore hopefully get bigger capital gains in the future. It also means that when property is bullish and when everyone's talking about property and everyone's talking about how great it is to be in the property space, that's probably when it's too mainstream and when I don't want to be buying, because people who don't normally buy property, the people who are bumbling around, are artificially increasing that price. And so they're paying a lot more for these properties than I would, having been somebody who's educated myself in the space for a long time. So I would encourage you to think about, what are the things you get FOMO in when it comes to your finances? Are you getting FOMO for the right reasons? Are they aligned with your values? Because if you're getting FOMO when all your friends are going out to eat, but you're not there, and that's because you're missing out on that friendship, that connection that's been created, then that's a good sign that you should actually go ahead with it. But if you're FOMOing because everyone else is doing it and that fear is catching up to you and you feel like you just need to get in on it so you don't miss out, then that's not the way you want to proceed. My next unconventional tip on how you can manage your money is for you to get familiar with your money limiting beliefs. Money shouldn't be confusing, and nor should it cause you anxiety, but it does, because we all have money trauma of some sense. But what's even more important is that you recognize that money is making you feel a certain way, and to actually work through that so that you can get smarter at how you manage your money. So for example, if you're someone who's procrastinating looking at your money, like you hate looking at your bank account, that's a really good sign that you need to be working through those issues. A good example here was when I was managing my tutoring business. So because I didn't have a strong understanding in my business financials, I didn't know how much revenue should be coming in, I didn't know how much expenses that needed to actually be going out, I got really scared of whether or not my business was even healthy. And I've talked a lot about this on my channel, so I'll link you to a video that's related to that and overcoming my money limiting beliefs when it came to my business. But basically that's kept me stuck in this rut, this uncomfortable situation where I just felt really bad about money for years on years on years. And finally, when I actually started working through my limiting beliefs, I started to become a lot more confident, and that feeling of not wanting to look at my bank account actually went away. If anything, I replaced it with excitement of actually looking at my bank account because I knew what I was doing. I was in control of my finances and I felt good about it. So if you want a recommendation on how to actually overcome your limiting beliefs, one thing I would do is, in one column on a piece of paper, just write down what are the beliefs you have about money. For example, it could be, I don't think I'll ever make enough money. Or it could be, money doesn't grow on trees. You have to work really hard for it. Or it could be, I don't know enough about money so that I can make a full-time income so I can quit my job. Once you've written that down in one column, in the next column, I want you to argue with yourself why what you've originally written is not true. So why your money belief beliefs are not true. So for that first example where you won't ever have enough money to survive, you could potentially say to yourself, actually, I'm surviving right now. I have my house covered, I have my shelter, I have my food, I actually have everything I need to survive. So why am I feeling this way? I think I'm feeling this way because I have grown this fear just from seeing my parents struggle and work really hard for money and never having enough. So once you actually start digging deeper and you keep asking yourself why, you'll get down to the root reason why you have these limiting beliefs about money. And even just raising awareness rather than trying to push it aside, rather than procrastinating on it, rather than not thinking about it, having that awareness just even to begin with is already one huge leap forward for you to actually start feeling good about your finances. I highly recommend this book, You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. Now, this is a quick disclaimer. It is a little bit more woo-woo, but to be honest, when I read it several years ago, I really loved the mindset she actually teaches you to ingrain in you that abundance mindset, and she actually gives you a few really good exercises on how you can start developing more of that abundance mindset. And so now, because I do have more of that abundance mindset, I just take opportunities wherever I can. For example, if I've signed up to a software and the trial is over and I forgot to cancel it in time and they have charged me, I will still go on and ask them, hey, sorry, I actually forgot to cancel my plan before the subscription was due. Can you please refund me? And 4 out of 5 times they will actually refund you. Another example is I own a property where I had a bill that was overdue for several months, and it was a really scary bill to see because they had actually started charging interest for the late payment. So it was actually getting increasingly more and more expensive. And so I freaked out, but rather than just paying on the spot and going, yep, here's the money, dealt with it, I called them up and I explained to them, hey, I'm so sorry that I've been late with these payments. I'm usually very much on time, and so I was just wondering if it'd be okay just for this one time for you to waive the added interest on this bill. And guess what? He was more than happy to. So here you'll see a lot of these tips are actually interlinked. You're not only not letting your limiting beliefs get to you, but you're also being resourceful as well. Now, if you'd like more book recommendations, then I actually have a video called Life-Changing Books You Need to Read. Now, in this video, I cover 6 of the top books, including finance books that have really shaped my understanding and perspective on managing my finances. Books that have helped me shape my values and helped me start living a life that's truly aligned with what I want. So go ahead and watch that, and thank you so much for watching this video. If you've stayed all the way until the end, I'll catch you next time. Bye!